Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back for another deep dive.
Always good to be here.
So today we're going deep, really deep, into something that I know hits home for a lot of us.
Yeah, this one's heavy.
It's this whole idea about how the trauma of slavery, like way back then, might still be affecting Black folks today. And not just like in our families and stuff.
Right.
But like in our actual biology.
Deep stuff.
We're diving into this source called the epigenetic legacy. How trauma through DNA has affected Black people from slavery to modern day. It's a lot to unpack. But basically the question is, can the trauma of the past, all that pain and suffering, be passed down through our genes? Like, is it woven into our DNA?
Well, the source really digs into this idea of epigenetics.
Okay, break that down for us. What exactly is epigenetics?
So think of it like this. Our DNA, it's the instruction manual for our bodies, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Epigenetics, it's not about changing the actual instructions, the letters of our DNA. It's more like adding these little notes in the margins, like sticky notes that tell our genes how loud or soft to play.
Interesting. So it's like a volume control.
Exactly. And these notes, they can come from our experiences, especially the tough ones. And get this, they can get passed down through generations.
Wait, hold up. So you're telling me, like, my grandma's experiences, good or bad, could actually leave a mark on my genes?
That's what the research is suggesting. It's wild.
It's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. So the source mentioned Holocaust survivors and how their kids and grandkids showed different stress responses, maybe because of these epigenetic markers. Is it saying the same thing could be happening with us, the descendants of enslaved Africans?
That's a parallel the source definitely draws, and there's science to back it up. One of the main ways epigenetics works is through this thing called DNA methylation.
Okay, DNA methylation. Triana, keep up.
Basically, it's like a chemical group attaches to the DNA and acts like a dimmer switch, turning gene activity up or down.
Got it. Kind of like dimming the lights.
Exactly. Then there's another mechanism called histone modification. This one changes how tightly the DNA is packaged, which impacts whether genes can be accessed. The source basically suggests that the chronic, intense stress faced by our ancestors during slavery, and then by Black folks through Jim Crow, and let's be real, the racism that still exists today, all of that could lead to these epigenetic changes.
So we're talking centuries of trauma, generation after generation. It's no wonder the source points to all the health disparities in the Black community, high blood pressure, diabetes, PTSD. It's like a pattern, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's where epigenetics offers a potential explanation for some of these patterns.
How so?
Well, there have been studies that found epigenetic modifications to a specific gene called FKBP5. This gene is involved in our stress response, and these modifications have been found in folks with PTSD. So the source is suggesting that the chronic stress of racism, discrimination, and economic hardship, all that could be contributing to these health problems. And not just through social factors, but through actual changes in how our bodies function at the genetic level.
Yeah, that's deep. And then there's the economic piece of all this. The source brings up the racial wealth gap, and how policies like redlining, literally drawing lines on maps to keep Black families from owning homes,
Yeah.
had a ripple effect that we still feel today.
That's a fact. That kind of economic disadvantage doesn't just vanish, it impacts everything. Access to good education, healthy food, living in safe neighborhoods. It even increases the likelihood of ending up dealing with the criminal justice system, which, let's be honest, can be super traumatizing in itself.
For real, it's like a vicious cycle.
Exactly. The source argues that this creates this cycle where the effects of historical and ongoing racism keep folks trapped in these cycles of poverty and stress. And that impacts both physical and mental health.
It's heavy stuff, no doubt. But the source doesn't just leave us in despair, right?
Sure.
It talks about healing, too. So if trauma can be passed down, what about resilience? Can that be passed down, too?
That's a powerful question. And the source seemed to suggest that, yeah, it's possible. Just like negative experiences can leave those epigenetic marks, positive experiences like interventions and support systems, they can potentially create positive changes.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. The source highlights things like trauma-informed care, where therapists actually understand the impact of historical and ongoing trauma. It also talks about the need for mental health support that's actually culturally relevant and accessible for Black communities.
Yeah, like those community initiatives the source mentioned. Groups that offer therapy specifically for Black folks, programs that teach financial literacy and entrepreneurship, creating spaces for healing and connection. That stuff gives me hope,
Me too. The source really emphasizes that addressing these systemic inequalities in healthcare, education, and economic opportunities is crucial.
Right.
But it also points to the power of individual and community resilience.
Right.
And the importance of things like mindfulness practices, strong social connections, and culturally affirming support systems.
Like, yeah, this stuff is heavy, and we can't ignore the weight of history.
Yeah.
But we also have the power to change the narrative to create a different future. So, big takeaway from this deep dive. The trauma of slavery, it's not just history. It might actually be part of us, in our very cells. But here's the flip side. Healing can be part of us too.
Well said. And it leaves us with this question. Knowing all of this, what responsibility do we have to ourselves, our families, our future generations? What can we do to break these cycles of trauma and build a better future, a healthier future?
That's something for us all to think about. This deep dive really made me realize we've got a lot of power within ourselves and within our communities to write a new chapter in this story.
Thanks for listening, y'all. Keep those conversations going. Keep asking those tough questions.
Peace.
And keep striving for healing for yourselves and for generations to come.